So with our scene set up, we can now go ahead and start creating a sprite manager on our actual body parts here for the manage sprite. So the same way we did it with our last model, we're going to create first we're going to add a sprite manager. Now that we added a sprite manager, we see that it's taken over, the billboarding and other effects. There aren't any frames or multiple directions yet defined, so we just have the main, the billboarding effect. And what we're also going to do is we're going to turn off billboarding and add our other billboarding component, billboarder. Move this guy above for organization purposes. And I guess one more thing that we're going to find out is that these sprites look a little bit blurry. Okay, so that's because they actually need to be set to point no filter. And when we do that, hit apply. Did that fix it? No. Okay. So now that we have a sprite manager on this guy, we can go ahead and kind of start creating animations and different states for the various actions that this type of character can have. First is going to be the base's default idle. And these sprites, they are only 4-directional. So that's the max that we can do for these. Let's go ahead and set that on our sprite manager, setting it to 4-direction, reflection mode. And because these things have basically the same sprites, both east and west. So what they've done with these sprite sheets, the original creator of these sprite sheets, they've basically just reflected the same sprites going east and west, maybe for whatever program they needed to enter this into. But we can safely skip like one of the directions and simply rig up like north, either west or east, and south. So I'm going to go ahead and choose reflection mode east to west here. And now we're going to start rigging up our sprite manager. So north sprites, we're going to go look for the idle, for the stuff named idle. So idle north, idle east, idle south. We don't have to set west. And actually, okay, so what did it do already? We can see that, that he's already being managed, but it's only the body that's being managed. So until we rig up other things, let's go ahead and hide the rest of the layers. Close this. Focus on this guy. The main model is actually pointing that way towards the blue line. That's why he looks like that. And because of that, let's go ahead and give the main model the top guy. So not the managed sprite. This rotation is already managed by SpriteMan, by the billboarding. We're just gonna turn this guy 180 degrees so he's kind of facing towards the camera by default. And when we hit play, we're going to see that now he is managed correctly. and his idle state is working. Continue to set up some more animations. So he has, what else is in here? He has an attack animation. So this is the slash attack. Next, he has a cast animation, so like spell casting. He has a hurt animation, the death animation. Shooting a bow and arrow. And the last one is going to be a thrust animation and then a walk animation. So let's go ahead and add states for those. Probably starting with, we're going to say walk. And what else was there? So walk. We're going to say attack. We're going to add cast. We're going to add thrust. And lastly, we're going to add hurt slash die, basically. All right, so the walking animation, let's see how many frames are in the walking animation. If we look down here, this is the walking. These are kind of the idle poses. So at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frames for the walk animation. Go ahead and add that. So idle walk, 8 frames. We're going to start with north. So scroll down to walk. We're going to go ahead with north. And we're not going to do walk north 0 is really the same as idle. So we're just going to start with walk north 1, walk north 2, and so on for 5, 6, 7, 8, east 1, 2, 3, south 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've added all of those. We don't need to do west. At this point, we should probably set up our animator so that we can test, so that we can see the things actually animating in the scene. So back on the root where, that defines the entire character. Over here, animator, we're going to start adding animations. So window, animation. Actually, first let's create a new folder underneath this customizable folder for animations. Click on that, create. So we're going to do, first is going to be idle. And then we're going to create a new clip for walk. Okay. Our idle animation is really not going to have anything, but we need to set the correct sprite manager properties on it. 1 and 2. So we animate our two SpriteMan fields, current frame and current state index. For something simple like an idle animation that only has 1 frame, we're not really going to have any samples. We're going to have, okay, 1 sample. Current state index for the idle state, for the idle animation is going to be 0. That's fine. And then the current frame, this one only has one frame, so it's always index 0. That's fine. We have to click also on our animation and set it to not loop. That way it only plays one time. Our walking animation, we want to leave in looping motion, so the loop time is going to be set to on. Clicking back on our character here, we're going to now set the frames for the walk animation. So Sprite Manager, current frame, and again, Sprite Manager, current state index. Current state index for walking is 1, so we have to set these both to 1. Value of 1. Select all, hit F, and that that centers your selection, that frames your selection again. We are going to have 4 samples. No, actually, we had 8 frames in this animation, so we're going to have 8 samples. And oh boy, where exactly did this put? Where did it put this thing? Let's go back to dope sheet view. We're going to drag these things into 1. There we go. So the way that I generally set my stuff up is I segment 1 second of animation into however many frames there are, and then I can control the speed of the clip from the animator this way. So I can just increase or decrease the speed from here. Alternatively, you can also, create the animation to actually take longer. But this is just something that I've kind of gotten used to. So going back to our walk animation, we're going to add the frames for the current frame. So the current frame is the thing that has to animate to change the frame number that we're going to currently be on as it's animating. Add. All right, go to curves view. And this is simply going to say like what's the frame index count. So each time, okay, it has to start at 0. There's 8 frames, 1 to 8. But because we're working in C# and Unity, this is part of an array. It needs to iterate through an array. And arrays use 0-based indexing. So that means that the array starts at 0. The first element of the array has the index of 0. So that's 0. And this one and then we keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then these last 2 can both be 7. So select all, hit F. Now we've reframed everything into our view. So we see, okay, it goes from frame 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this last one is 7. Now we can go ahead and hit play. And we see that it is correctly animating all the frames. We've got a wonderful walk motion here. All right, so the walk cycle is done. Well, the animation. The thing that we need to do next, again, remember we have to set transitions. Okay, so in game view, we saw that the animation is complete, but in the game view, he can't walk yet. So we have to actually set our animator up next. And we're going to use a Boolean parameter. This one is called isMoving. It's using the same script as our other characters. And that's one of the parameters that we use for those characters, for these scripts. So now we create, okay, it doesn't have exit time. There's no fixed duration. The transition duration is 0. There's no real transition that needs to snap immediately when things change. And we're going to say when isMoving is true, the character has to start looking like he's walking. And then vice versa. Again, no exit time for this animation. This transition, no duration. Transition duration 0. And then when he stops moving, he needs to stand still. He needs to look like he's standing still, which is the state. Okay, the game. There it is. Okay. And then our walk animation looks a little bit slow for the pace that he's actually moving in. So 2 things that we can do. First, we can maybe decrease his walk speed on the actual character. So maybe he doesn't cover as much ground. Run speed 1.5. Looks a little bit better. And we can also make him look like he's walking a bit faster. So clicking on this animation, we're going to increase the animation speed itself to 1.5. Let's see how that looks. There we go. So now he's walking a little bit faster, and all the speeds kind of match. Looks pretty good.